If you have watched my previous videos regarding how to sand, paint, and prepare this chest armor, you may remember that I mentioned that I might be making a video on how to create the chest harness that I use for this. Now, I used in those videos these drawings. They're very rough, but I did include actual drawings from computer design on the video links at the bottom of the description, and those instructions have a bit of how to do it. In this video, I'm going to actually show you how to do it. I'm not going to do the front one. I will be doing just the back one because I did come up with a different version that I want to try to see if it works out. But the concept is the same as far as how to get the measurements and how to sew. So the measurements for this, you basically want to measure around the belly button area and the lower chest area, or wherever this is going to line up to your body type. Now, you can probably use this chest harness for any other type of chest plate. You obviously just have to adjust it, but the general concept I feel should be useful. As I go through this video, I will be going over what supplies I'll be using. So let's get started with this. This is the original chest harness for the bag that I built, and I'm going to be going over how to generally get these measurements, and more importantly, how to sew them together. I'll be using a cross-stitch pattern, and I'll be going that in a few minutes. So let's get started with this. You're going to be needing this type of strap. Is 1 inch wide, and you want the solid type, not the flexible type. What I mean by that is, very often you can find these type of elastic straps. They look very similar, but if you look at this stretches. You don't really want this one because over time this is just gonna sag. So you want the solid type. And I will put links below in the description of the supplies that I used to assemble this. Okay, I'm gonna try to zoom into this on the video because it is very small, but this is a variation of this design. In this design, I just have the long straps going down the back and going across, and then this I shortened it and I put the buckle because I found that it was too wide, and as I mentioned in the video, it was just bunching up, kind of like doing this in the back. In this new design, I want to try a cross pattern to come across this way but still maintain these. Let me go over one of the supplies that you will likely want to use. I bought this on Amazon. This is a carpet sewing kit, and the main reason that I bought this kit is because it comes obviously with a lot of string. It comes with very strong needles and very strong string. Actually, it's for rugs, and it also has a measuring tape, so you can actually use this to measure around your body much easier than any other tape, and you have quite a bit of it. As you can see, this specific one goes up to 16 inches, and I'll try to put on the screen somewhere up here the diagram that I'll be addressing, the more official diagram that I created on how to get the measurements. Obviously, this is the back, so let's measure this bottom one here. So we are about 29 inches, right about here. So if we get 29 inches and we double that, we get 58. If you remember what I mentioned about wrapping it around, if you're gonna add 4 inches on each side of these for the buckles, 4, so that's 2 per strap here, so that's 4 and 4 on the other side, that's 16 inches, right? So we subtract 16 inches from our 58, we get 42 inches. So that means that when I first measured this, I used 42 inches going all the way around. right? And that might seem high, but you have to consider that on the chest plate, there's a cavity, so it's gonna go under a little bit. So you're gonna lose a little length there. So I made them a little longer, obviously. This actually, when I tie it, there's a lot extra, but I'm just trying to explain that it's okay to be longer, and you probably wanna be longer to start with, and then cut it and arrange it as you need it. So what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna use the exact same measurements that I did for this one because I know they worked for me. So this one was 29 inches. So I'm gonna do 29 inches of this one. And then, how I mentioned on the other video, I usually burn my ends to keep them from fraying. Be very careful with this, because this will burn you really badly, as it did in the last video. At least burn me. Doesn't really need a lot. Let it cool down for a second and it should be fine. You always want to do it on both ends to keep it from fraying. Now we have our bottom. So I just need another one of these. So I have my two pieces for the back, which are my horizontal. So now I need my verticals from here. So here I had 26, but like I said, I'm making them longer. So here I want two 12-inch pieces for the verticals here. And it doesn't actually have to touch. The heat reflecting from it will actually get it done. So that's my verticals. Now these, the ones that are gonna go across, let me go over that for 1 second. So as you can see here, I brought back the original harness because I wanna explain how I got the 21 inches from here. If I measure from here to here, I have 11 inches. Now, I'm doing 12 inches here because I'm making that one a little different from this one, but 12 inches from here, right? So this is my 12 inches. Now, if I measure from here going up from my original design, that was a little over 18 and a half, maybe 18 and 3/4. Yet here I'm doing 21 inches. The reason for that is because I'm going to go across, which means I'm going to go across to this end. So from here, if I turn this way, you can see that if I did 18 and 3/4, it'll be too short. So I went 21 inches there. Now, this is going to go down just a little bit because when you're sewing it, you have to overlap the diagonal one with the vertical one underneath it like this in order to sew it together. So that's where the 21 inches comes from. So hopefully that made sense, but it'll probably make more sense as I'm doing it. But I just want to explain that if you're gonna go crossbody, you have to add extra because vertical, obviously, it's a shorter distance. So let's continue. I need two 21 inches. Probably put that on top. Be patient with your measuring. This is the important parts. So let's put this together. So we've got 12 inches. These are our 21s. 12, 12, 29, 29. Take this out for a second. This one's gonna go across this way. And this one's gonna go across this way. So hopefully this is making a little more sense now. So on this one starts at 5 inches from the bottom. Now what you may want to do is do some markings on these. If you have like a white chalk, that would probably be perfect. A gray Sharpie. I think I have a gray Sharpie, so let me go get one of those. Okay, so I have a gray silver Sharpie. So I'm just gonna mark this at 5 inches. It doesn't have to be a big mark, just enough for you to be able to see it. You probably cannot even see that on the video right there. Then the other one goes about 10 inches from the bottom. I'll do exactly 10. If you haven't noticed by now, I'm not exactly, what do you call this? A seamstress? Somebody that sews a lot. So I'm doing what I can. So this one's gonna go here. This one will go here. As you can see, it leaves us with approximately 1 inch at the top, which is what we're looking for. So now we need to go across. So if we're gonna go across, and just in case I didn't mention it, there's gonna be timestamps at the bottom of this video. So we need these to be, let's get it from here, 12 inches apart from end to end. But the more important part to this is the center of this. If I measure this, this is 29 inches. Half of 29 inches is what? 14 and a half, 14 and a half. So I'm just gonna mark 14 and a half into off center here. That is the wrong color. Let's try that again. Just make sure we didn't move. 14 and a half. Fourteen and a half. If this has to be 12 inches wide, that means that from the center to the outer part of this, we should have 6 inches. I'm just going to do 6 inches here. Six inches here. Right? And there we go. So this is lined up there, lined up there. Okay, there we go. There we go. This may not look perfect because these are not straight. Obviously, this is a flexible material. So this is pretty much how we'll be sewing this together. Okay. So if you happen to have one of these little kits that have like pins, what are those called? Baby pins and so forth, that'll be useful to holding this together to keep it from moving around while you're trying to sew it. So what I'll do is, over here, I'll line up my marks right here. You can see the bottom and the side, and I'm just gonna put one of these in here, just to keep it in general place. Hopefully you can see that there. Obviously we can adjust it as we're sewing it. And I'm just gonna put it on this one to show you the pattern. Now, as I mentioned, I'm gonna be using white. As you can tell, this is a lot bigger than your standard sewing needle. The hole's actually very big. I usually go about that much at a time, because what happens is if you go too long, it could get all tangled up. Now, if you've never sewed before, I'm going to show you what I do. So let's say this is the end. This is both pieces put together after I cut it, right? Put it like this. Wrap it once around your finger, kind of make like a little loop and bring it in. At least that's what I do. Not perfect. If you want, you could do like the regular nut, but I like it to be nice and big like this. Okay, hopefully you can see that. So here, like I mentioned, we're gonna start from the bottom or from the back. Now we're gonna start from the back of this one here. So in between both of them is where we're going to start to hide it. And it should become a lot more visible as the string goes in. So if you can see here, I'm about 2/16 of an inch off of it. And I'm gonna go in. Come out. You can see the end of the string there. So what you can do is you can just put that inside like that. Then we said we're gonna come from the top down one. Just watch your fingers with these. And see, I came all the way across to the back of the second one. And if your string isn't as straight as you like, that's fine. There's not a machine. That's why I use the black one, because you can't see it. So from back here, I'm gonna try to keep the same distance from here. Come out to the other side. You see, it's about the same distance. Then we're gonna come back and go through the hole of the previous one on the top. Again, watch your fingers. And just take your time doing this. You want this to come out right. So we're fine there. The pattern is a little weird, but that's fine. It's probably because I wasn't going in straight down. I'll try this one again, going straight down. You can see what I meant about that it could get tangled if you make it too long. And if that happens, just stop pulling and just lightly pull it out like this. And you can see one of them is longer than the other. That means it became uneven. So what you do is hold it like that and then gently pull on your needle to even them out. And there we go. So we're back over here. And this can get annoying with all these pieces going around. So just take your time. I'm gonna try to do these a little bit more straight now. And what you can also do is pull on this a little bit to make sure they're even before you start pulling from the other side. And yeah, it doesn't look great, but it should do the job. And I missed right here, so just be more careful than I'm being. I'm trying to record this and watch the video at the same time to make sure that I'm still in frame. Let me just try to focus down here and see if it comes out okay. So now that we're here at the end, yeah, that's horrible looking, so I'll try to do it much better coming across this way. I'm just gonna come out right here a little bit, go back under, and then underneath, come across. Coming out here. So now that I have this one here, I could take this out. Let's see here. I'm gonna come this way. You can always look to see that you're coming out straight before you bring it in all the way. And see it's gonna get tangled. I'm just gonna use my needle and just pull it out slightly. Yeah, that one looks a little better. Let's see if we can keep that up. I'm gonna do my square and then I'll come back for the cross. All right, so as you can see, I've pretty much finished my square. I continue to do a lot better than this original catastrophe, but that's fine. So I'm done here at the end, right? So obviously I have plenty of string left, but I'm gonna make believe that I ran out and I need to end this. So what I meant before about sewing it underneath, you can see here, in between them, I'm gonna go through this last hole, but I'm not gonna come out through the other end. I'm not gonna come out through here, I'm gonna come out through the side here, right? So hopefully you can see that I'm coming out through the side. I know it's black and it's gonna be very hard to see. And then I'm gonna go in again from the back. So I've gone in twice. So then right here, I'll come in, come out on the same side a little bit, come back through the loop, and hopefully you can see this. I'm gonna make a nut right here. So I'll do that several times. Again, if you're doing this in black string or thread, it'll be less noticeable. Okay, so as you can see here, I've gone through several times. I have a nut there. I'm just gonna cut it with a scissor. Just make sure you don't cut your nut. But this will be our exposed side that's gonna be shown out, right? And obviously, we want that to be black so it's less noticeable. I keep saying string, I know it's thread. If I was using this, see that right there? There's no way you'll be able to see that. So that's why I'm using the white, so you can actually see it. For the rest of it, I'm actually gonna finish with the black. Just as a note. So if you have it like this, do you need the cross? Not necessarily. You don't really need to do the cross hatch pattern, but I do want to do it because I feel that makes it stronger and I want this to last. Obviously, you don't want to be wearing your harness and have it come loose because one of these stitches broke. So the more stitches you have, the more secure it's going to be. And adding the center one will only add me a few minutes of that. All right, I'm just gonna get more thread and start this other part. Okay, so I have my new thread. I'm gonna do the cross hatch. So remember that you start from the bottom. Now I know this is sewed together, but you can still come in through the side here, in between both of them. Come out here. And you can see it's already starting to be uneven. So let's just even this out. So I'm just gonna follow the same pattern of going up across. And I'll fast forward through this part. I'm rushing through it again, so it's coming out all wonky. Okay, so we have our stitch. So now I'm gonna go through here. I'm gonna come back out this way and come down this way. Obviously, if you don't have to be doing this on camera, it's a lot easier to pay attention and to take your time. I'm actually rushing through this a bit because I don't want to make this video too long. So as you can see, we have our cross there, and that is a lot stronger, I guarantee you. So again, I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm just going to do my nut in the back. What I mentioned about the Sharpie here, you can see here, I mean, is it perfect? No. Will it hide it? Yes. Because the rest of them are going to be black. So you're not going to be able to see those. You can see? You can barely see that now. Let me show you here. See? All right. So I know I mentioned in the previous section of this video that I will be sewing the rest of these and then be back for the top part. But before I started this one, I decided that I wanted to try to get a nicer pattern. And once I was able to do that, I realized I can give a few extra tips on how to get a nicer pattern and give you a better close-up of what I'm doing. So that's what I'm gonna do now. We're gonna line these up as we did before. This was our inner mark lined up to here. And obviously the last time we used one of these pins to hold it together, so we'll be doing the same. And I'm going to need to remove that just to show you. But before we do this, I'm gonna zoom in real good to this. All right, so hopefully this is a lot clearer. And again, we want to develop this pattern. So one thing that we can actually do to make our lives simpler is using one of these silver Sharpies or a weight crayon or chalk or something like that. We can actually draw out the line that we want to follow on here. And since the thread is going to be over it, it should be fine because obviously it's going to cover it. So this gives us a nice way to make sure that we're going straight, which is part of the problem that I previously had. And I'm getting that little bump because of the little pin, but that's fine. Again, this is just to get a guide of the pattern that we want to follow. That's the first tip that you can do to help guide you. Now, what I would suggest is do the exact same thing on the opposite side. And again, this is just for general guidance. With the markings, it's a lot easier to see where you have sewed. So let's say we were up to here, we would see the rest of it. Like before, we're gonna start from the bottom, we're gonna come up, and then come down across. So we're right here, I'm going under. And that way down here, I can also see if I'm on the line to make sure I'm as straight as possible. I'm gonna come over 2 lines right here and come down to the other side. And as you can see there, I'm a little bit off. I'm just gonna back out a little bit and reset it. I'm gonna bring it in. Make sure it's nice and tight. And I'm gonna go in the hole of the entrance here of the previous one. And see, using this technique, it's pretty straight. Now on here, I went 2 over. So I'll go 2 more over because this is a back stitch, remember. And let's just make sure that we're on the line here. As you can see, I'm a little bit off the line. I'm backing out and coming back in. Again, I'm going to go into the hole with the previous one. And you'll see in the back that they sort of overlap because you go in as a back stitch. And in the front, it's continuing a nice straight line. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead, continue to the top and do my crosshatch, and I'll fast forward through this section. And here, I'm skipping 2 long ones. Same thing in the back. You can see our markings is making it a lot easier to follow a straighter line. So there we have our, basically our end. So next, we're up here, we go down. I'm gonna go ahead, finish the rest of this, and once I get to here, I'll be back. So as you can see, we're up to this section, which is this part right here. So the one that's gonna come up, we're basically gonna run it using the same stitching pattern as the one on the left, but we're gonna do it on the right of it. Okay, so we're done. Now, hopefully you can see that it's fairly close to it. Just gonna go ahead, do my little nut in the back, and I'm done. Now that we have our bottom section completed, we need to do the top cross section, which is this section here. But before you start sewing anything together, you need to find the gap between the 2 top portions, because that will affect the angle that this will be, obviously, and where you will sew this together right here. So how do we get our gap at the top? We'll use our measuring tape and measure from the back between our shoulders to where it begins to dip down. So at the bottom of your neck and right before it starts to go out, measure there. For me, it happens to be 10 inches, which is the width that I used here. Now, you want it to be 10 inches, but you have to consider that these are going to be crossed like this, obviously at the end of it. The 10 inches have to be here, right? So around the center of each one. So if I was to do it this way, see right there, that's 10 inches, which is the gap of this. So these should basically line up with these ends near the top. That way, when it goes below your shoulder, it's gonna drop like this. Just like a book bag would, or a backpack. So what we'll do is, we'll rotate this just to give you a better view, and we don't really need to see the bottom of it for this. You see the top view right here. I'm gonna go like this. Now down here at the ends, you wanna line it up where the tip of this is touching your edge here. And the tip on this side is touching more or less the edge here. This is just your starting point. Now that we have it set up, we want to measure the top. Again, from the center here to here. So it so happens that it's almost there. Hopefully you can see that. More or less right there. Now that we know that this is lined up properly, we know that this is the position where we want to sew this together. I'm going to make use of my silver Sharpie again to help me line this up. So I'm just going to draw a line here, draw a line here, and I know this is how it needs to be there. Same thing down here on the bottom section. I'm going to do it on the extra part here and on the bottom. Okay, so just some tips. Before you disassemble this, get a measurement. If you have a straight ruler, it's a little easier. Hold here and get a measurement from here to the end. Mine happens to be 8.5, so it should be 8.5 going this way. It's a little longer, but we already know that I actually cut one of these longer. I'll just bring it down on this side a little bit. But the general length should be 8.5 by 8.5. And you can also, before pulling it apart, actually put in your first needle to hold it in place. I'm just going to put 2. So now that I have my pins on, it's very easy for me to confirm the length again. It's about 8.5 and about 8.5. So that's good, and this is in place now. What I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna do a similar pattern as we did here, but this is a diamond shape. Again, with my silver Sharpie, I'm just gonna mark this. And I'm following this edge here as best as I can. And going this way, I'll follow this edge. And I know I have my 2 needle pins there. I'll do the best that I can here. And then I'm gonna go across. Let me see if I get in a position to make it easy for you to see. Go across this way, go across this way, come down, go up. So it kind of looks like a kite. So that's the pattern that we're going to follow. Let's see if I could put this in a little more. There we go. And that's the pattern that we're going to sew together. There's a little bulged up because of the pins. And again, I'm not going to show you the sewing of this because it is exactly the same methodology that we used here, except obviously it's a slightly different shape. And since it's a slightly different shape and some of the ends look a little longer, use a little bit of a longer thread for these. We use 30 inches. So I'm gonna do something like 35 inches just to make sure that I have enough to go across all of this just in case. And just in case you're wondering what you can use the same measuring tape. Just put it on the table, put 35 inches, and then you know that's how long it needs to be. Okay, so as you can see, already done this side. So now I'm gonna come across this way. So as you can see, I finished this one. Now I'm gonna head up this way. Since I have both of these done, this should not really move around. I'm just gonna remove these 2 pins. And that should make it a little flatter and easier to sew. Again, I'm following the same pattern. I'm gonna go up, and then I'm gonna come down. As you can see, we're moving along. So next I'm gonna come this way, then down, and then finish right here. Okay. So just as a note before I do my second stitch here. Here, I don't know if you can see. Let's see if I could show you this. I went pretty close to the edge on this one. So I'm actually gonna do it on the inside of it instead of the outside. As you can see, I finished my little kite pattern. Is it perfect? No. Will it work? I think so. As I mentioned at the beginning, I'm not an expert. I'm just doing this with the hopes that somebody can find it useful and be able to create their own harness. As far as the material that was left over, there's about 5-6 inches. So Good thing we added that, otherwise, if we had run out, we would have been like somewhere like right here, and we wouldn't have been able to make our nut to close it off. So it's always good to have a little more than obviously less. So next, I'm gonna go to these ends here. The reason that we did these little marks before, obviously, was to line up our end. But we also did them in order to help us understand what we need to do. If we leave it like this and we try to sew it, we're going to have a very small sewing area to sew it on. So what we can actually do is keep going a little longer, right? Line up this end here with the edge here, but making sure that we keep this line just as we had it before. And then what we'll do is, from this end here to this end here, we're gonna do a line. The line, we're gonna cut, and then we're gonna seal it with the heat. And that'll give us, as you can see, a lot more surface area. This little end here will ultimately just cut it off. And we're gonna do this on both sides. I'm gonna line up my other end. And just as a note, before I forget, make sure that you have your top end, which should be, at least for me, about 8.5. The bottom end should be a lot longer. Make sure that you're using your bottom end, not the top end. Okay, so we're gonna line this up with our edge here, making sure to keep our mark on there. And obviously it's not gonna be 100% perfect, because you can see here it's overlapping. We can cut that off. We can cut this off and seal it. We could do it before or after. This one actually probably be easier before. So I'm just gonna cut that off. You always wanna try to clean up as much as possible before you sew it together. It's good. Just gonna seal it with some heat. So there's nice and sealed. Gonna go right there, just like that. And while I'm at it, I'm gonna cut this one off and seal it. Just check it. It's pretty good to me. And you don't have to do this. This is just what I want to do, because I want nice clean edges there. Not like anybody's going to be paying attention to that. I'm going to use my pen to lock it in place. And then we're going to go over our pattern in a second. Just going to do the other end. I have that right there for my next pin. Okay, so I hope you can see there. This is pretty much what it's gonna look like. We just need to sew here and here. And now that we're zoomed in, it should be a little easier for you to see. At least I hope. I'll get this out of the way. We wanna make sure that this edge, we sew it on. So if I fold it together like this, right? I can take my silver Sharpie or chalk or whatever it is you're using and mark where our end is here. So now we know here that is our end, and we also have an edge here. I know it's following like this along that path right there. So this is our sewing area. So basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna sew here, 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 and again, I'm gonna do my cross pattern. It's gonna be a little difficult to do with that pin right there, but you get the idea. right, of what you want to try to accomplish. So once again, I'm doing 35 inches of double strand, and I'm just going to start down here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do these two, and then I'll come back. So as you can see, I finished sewing these ends here. I tried to follow this pattern here. As you can see, I was a little successful on this one, not so much on this one. On this one, I sort of fell into the trap of following the edge instead of trying to follow this pattern like I did on this one here. Hopefully you can see that a bit, but that's fine. I mean, I sewed this into white thread so you could actually see it on camera. If I was using on black, like I said before, you would never be able to see this, and this demonstration wouldn't be very useful for you. So we're pretty much done with the sewing. Now these ends here, I did mention in the prior video my intent with these, which was to add some buckle ends here, and then add the other end on a separate strap, something like this, fold it over, create like a little hook, the belt will go in here, and basically with one end here on the belt and the other end here on the strap, you will basically connect them. Now that might work, but I felt that this might end up being too long and it will be loose and it would really not fulfill the intent, which was to keep this tight in position, because I found that this would actually slide down over time a little bit due to the weight of the chest armor. So I still want to connect it to the belt. I was asking myself what could work like that. And then after a while I realized suspenders, kind of like the people with suits wear. And I found these suspender end clips. They have them in silver and in black. So basically the way it works is you open it, you end up with these little teeth there, and they basically hook onto your belt or whatever it is, belt or the pants, I guess. You close it and it just stays on there. It grabs very well. You have two options if you want to use these. You could put it here, try to find a good height, fold this over and sew it just like we did these. Or the better option is get some of these buckle clips. So basically the way that you would attach these is using these. You put it through your loop like that, run it under the clip, and then just get it on your loop here. And that's it. And that's adjustable. It'll give you some level of adjustment. If it's too short, you can bring it down a bit, and you can see that's a pretty good length. It's almost the same length as this was. And if you need it shorter, obviously, you could just slide this backwards, you know. You might have to loosen this a bit, you know. Same way that you would do it on a bookpack or a backpack or something like that, you know. I'm sure most people are familiar with those to some degree. Now we have it shorter. Show you here. So it'll make this adjustable, and this will be a nice way to hook it on to your pants or your belt and keep this from sliding. And these ends, obviously, I'm just going to put these buckles on to attach it. I'll show you this assembled at the end just to show you how it works, but that's pretty much the end of the video, or the instructional part of the video. I hope you found it useful. If you did, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Help me out with that. Thank you. I know I mentioned it when I did the previous videos, so let me just put this together. This is with the new harness. I just want to make sure to go over this. So there's the new harness on the back. Now, depending on your body type and how you do this harness, these might stay loose. So you have a few options with these, because you do have a lot of adjustment here, but depending on the length that you use and how big these buckles are, because there are actually some that are smaller than these, I actually think I have some here. Let me see. Yeah, so if you look at these are much smaller than these, right? So your harness may feel tighter or looser depending on which ones you use. So with these bigger ones, they're about almost 3/4 of an inch longer, these are, than these. So if you imagine 3/4 of an inch on each side, that's 1.5 inches extra length that you're gonna have on each of these with these versus these. So which one would I recommend? Really depends. If you have a lot of this material, you can go with these or these. Just know that you might have to adjust these. And depending on how this falls, you can actually put some of these in the back here. So basically you just cut it, seal it, and then just do your loops. And then you have some extra adjustment back here to bring this closer or further away. And you can also do that here. Theoretically, you could also do that here. So don't be afraid to adjust this harness that as best suits you, because the point of this is for it to fit properly for you. That means that I know I did 8.5 inches here. If necessary, do it a little longer, just to keep this more towards the lower back. Again, this harness is experimental. I haven't really fully tested it, wearing it the whole day, but I think it'll work. I'll put the design for this one along with the previous one, so you build whichever you feel fits you best. I still have this one as a fallback, and I could take it with me, and I'll just add buckles to this. And then if this one's not working out, I'll just put the original one that I have this end here already adjusted here. I didn't do these bottom ones here. So we'll see what happens. And I could also put the ends down here, the ends down here for the belt. So I just wanted to make sure that I covered that you can actually put buckles on these to adjust it if you need. And yeah, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them below in the comments. I'll do my best to answer them in a timely fashion. Otherwise, happy cosplaying. Oh, and don't forget to check out the description below for all the parts that I use, including the sewing kit, the suspender clips, and all the parts that I use for this, in case you need a source or something.